Everyone. Welcome to the Little Rock Board of Directors meeting for March 21st, 2017. I'm happy to see everybody here with us in City Hall as we conduct the work of our citizens. With that said, I'm going to ask our city clerk to read the roll.
Director
Please.
Hendricks, Director Richardson, Director Peck, Director Hines, Director Wright, Director Wyrick, Director Campuris, Director Fortson, Director Adcock, Vice Mayor Webb, Mayor Studler.
Here. Let me call on City Director Doris Wright for our invocation, please.
Father, thank you for this opportunity to be present this evening doing the people's business. We pray for each one of our board members. We pray for our police officers and our employees on the front lines doing service for our citizens. We thank you for this opportunity, and we do not take it lightly. We pray that we will keep everything decent and in order. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get into the modifications and the consent agenda, I'm going to ask Kathy Webb to hang on to the gavel as I read a proclamation.
Don't throw it.
As many of you know, and probably some of the people in the audience saw, we had, I don't know, probably a couple of hundred people here earlier between 5 and 6 o'clock from our Hispanic community who had participated in driving instruction classes over this past month on 2 different Saturdays at the Southwest Community Center. The driving instruction classes were conducted by our police department, Chief Buckner and his team of police officers, and many who are fluent in Spanish, who conducted the actual driving instruction classes, done to make sure that the wonderful and embracive diversity of our community understands that it's important to follow the rules of the road and know what those driving rules are. And so we were very pleased to see the turnout, really the outpouring of people who came wanting to learn and wanting to make sure that they respected the laws of our city and our state. On the first Saturday, we had about 300 people and their children over in the area playing in the various courts that we have at the Southwest Community Center. On the second Saturday, and I was able to be at that one, there were almost 500 people there, to give you an idea of how important this is as an issue in our community. And it's coincidental that tonight we issued them a certificate recognizing their participation. But what's coincidental about that is that today is a day that the U.S. Conference of Mayors and cities across the country are proclaiming as National Immigration Day of Action. And I have a proclamation which I am issuing today recognizing that, and it reads as follows. Know ye all people by these present greetings. Whereas America is a nation of immigrants, and wave after wave of immigrants seeking a better life have built our nation and brought significant social, economic, and cultural benefits to communities nationwide. And whereas Little Rock is such a community, as immigrants have enriched our city's culture, increased our productivity and innovation, and bolstered our economy. And whereas mayors in cities big and small, including Little Rock, foster welcoming and secure cities for all their residents, regardless of who they are or where they come from. And whereas the U.S. Conference of Mayors and mayors across America have consistently called on the federal government to fix the country's broken immigration system and enact comprehensive immigration reform in a humane manner. And in the absence of federal immigration reform, mayors and their city councils seek strategies to protect all their residents while ensuring that local law enforcement focuses on public safety and on community policing. And whereas the Little Rock Police Department recognizes the importance of focusing on enforcement of the criminal laws of the state, regardless of immigration status, And whereas the U.S. Conference of Mayors has called for the enactment of bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform that recognizes the social, economic, and cultural contributions of immigrant communities. And whereas the U.S. Conference of Mayors has organized today as a National Immigration Day of Action, now therefore, I, Mark Stodel, the mayor of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, do hereby join cities across the country in proclaiming Tuesday, March 21st, 2017, as National Immigration Day of Action in the city of Little Rock, and urges Congress to take action on immigration reform by strengthening our borders, strengthening our laws, and protecting all citizens with a commitment to the values of diversity, inclusiveness, and equality. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and seal on this 21st day of March, 2017. Thank you. Okay, we can now move on to our agenda. And the first items we have are some modifications that are being recommended. Resolutions M1 and M2, and I believe on the next page, M3.
Mayor, turn the lights off.
Yes, Director Hendricks, go ahead, please.
With regard to the resolutions on 6, if I vote for this, I would like for my name to be on that ordinance also.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Have you seen the ordinance itself? A copy of the ordinance?
Which item are we speaking about?
6.
On the agenda?
what I
You mean
said.
resolution?
Is that what you're on right now?
No, I'm just asking to add the modifications, which are M1, 2, and 3 at this moment.
Okay, well, I'll hold mine.
And then I'll recognize you again.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so is there any, yes, Director Adcock. There's a motion to add items 1, 2, and 3 to the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Item M3 is an ordinance.
Oh, excuse me. We'll group that if we can. All right, there's a motion to add items 1 and 2, items M1 and 2 to the consent agenda. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay, they are added. And we'll add the M3 to the grouped items if we can. All right, now, Director Hendricks, we have added those to the consent agenda, which consists of items 1 through 6.
Yeah, I'll support that.
Did you have a question?
Okay, on the 6, item 6, I ask you if you had seen the ordinance that was prepared by, I guess,
The resolution is it was in the package of information that was sent out to you.
yeah, and what I'm
Director Hendricks
asking.
said she wants to be listed as a sponsor of the resolution.
Pardon?
It's,
I think everybody that votes for it should be on there.
I have no problem with that. They
Okay,
just need to
that's what I
tell us.
want. If I vote for this, I'm voting for this. I want my name added to that
Yes, ma'am.
ordinance.
I hear. All right, very well. We can figure that out.
I don't
All right,
want nobody be guessing.
Director Richardson, did you have any other comment?
No, Mayor, I think Director Hendricks wants her name added as one of co-sponsors, Tom. I think the sponsors, co-sponsors, Doris, me, Cappy, and Kathy, and that's for the impact study. So I think she wants to be added as one of co-sponsors, Tom. Thank you.
All right. So the consent agenda is, consists of items 1 through 6 and the 2 resolutions. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the resolutions.
The consent agenda consists of a resolution to authorize the city manager to renew contracts for housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, HOPWA, in a total combined amount not to exceed $511,875 for 1 year, with the city's option to renew the term of the contracts for one additional 1-year term, and for the purposes A resolution authorizing the city manager to award a contract to Redstone Construction Group Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $3,327,917.34 for street resurfacing within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into an annual contract with the tree marshal as primary contractor and Jedediah Sawyer Tree Service as primary as secondary contractor for the purpose of providing tree removal and tree trimming services on an as-needed basis for various city departments and for other purposes, funding from the 2012 386 capital improvement sales tax. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into an annual contract with Goodyear Commercial Tires, Looney's Tires, and Southern Tire Mart with an annual budget not to exceed $100,000 for commercial tires for the Fleet Services Department and for other purposes. A resolution to make appointment to the Arkansas Arts Center Board of Trustees and for other purposes. A resolution to request that the superintendent of the Little Rock School District and the Arkansas Commissioner of Education perform a community impact study regarding school closures and for other purposes. No, wait. A resolution to certify local government endorsed of the Ace Glass Manufacturing LLC located at 3101 Dugan Drive, Little Rock, Arkansas, to participate in the Arkansas Tax Back Program as authorized by Arkansas Code Section 15-4-2706D of the Consolidated Incentive Act of 2003 and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to execute a letter of support for Sunset Terrace to receive a 9% low-income housing tax credit from the Arkansas Development Finance Authority and for other purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
There's a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda. Director Richardson, do you have a comment on the consent agenda? There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the passage of the consent agenda indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The consent agenda is passed. Director Richardson, you're first, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Madam Clerk, on resolution number 3, do we have any specific, not 3, number 2, do we have specific locations or particular wards where we're going to have this resurfacing?
Yes, I have it. I have them in my office. I'll bring them down. I meant to. I forgot.
Okay, I'll wait till you go get them and bring them down.
All right, Director Hendricks, you're recognized.
The same as Mr. Richardson is that I would like to have a copy of every street that's to be fixed out at this cost.
All right, very
So
good.
much discrimination going on, it bothers me.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. You'll take care of that. Mr. Jones. All right, very good. The consent agenda has been approved. For those of you who were here on item 6, I guess you can say congratulations or whatever you'd like to say, but the matter is passed. I didn't hear any.
Yes.
One nay?
Yeah.
Well, it was on the consent agenda, so
Yes, Director Adcock said she approved.
she moved the consent agenda.
Moved with all but item 6.
Very good.
I've got that down.
She moved for the consent agenda. She voted for all except item 6.
Right, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Read my mind, Tom.
No, well, we don't need to do that if we don't need to. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda, please. Items 1 through 6. Excuse me, I mean the other items. The planning and development items. Sorry, I got to turn the page.
That actually should say grouped items, and we'll add M3. Okay. Jeez, Pete. Huh? Yeah. An ordinance to approve a planned zoning development, establish a planned commercial district titled Little Rock School District, Southwest High School, Longform PDC, located at 9715 Mableville Pike, at the intersection of Mableville Pike and Sibley Hole Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes, an ordinance to grant a franchise to the Arkansas Riverview Development LLC for a temporary construction easement to construct and franchise rights to access and maintain certain structural piers that are existing on or to be added to city property, collectively the beneficial piers, including the installation of a sump pump upon city property, to authorize the city to enter into a structural pier and sump pump franchise agreement with Arkansas Riverview Development LLC, and for the purposes, first reading.
Okay, there's a request to read item 7 separately. I think that's what we're doing, aren't we? Did you read the other items as well? Okay. Is there a motion for second reading on items 8 and 9?
No, 8 and 9 are separate. Planning and development should have been, usually I'll change the title to grouped items. And so when we moved M3 to grouped, I just put it in with there. But if you want it separate, then we can read it separately with 8 and 9.
Let's do that, please. Let's just read each one of them separately. So if you'll read M3, please, second reading. Is there a motion for second reading on M3? There's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Second reading on M3, please.
An ordinance to grant a franchise to the Arkansas Riverview Development LLC for a temporary construction easement to construct and franchise rights to access and maintain certain structural piers that are existing on or to be added to city property, including the installation of a sump pump upon city property, to authorize the city to enter into a structural pier and sump pump franchise agreement with Arkansas Riverview Development LLC, and for the purposes, second reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on third and final reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Third and final reading, please.
An ordinance to grant a franchise to the Arkansas Riverview Development LLC for a temporary construction easement to construct and franchise rights to access and maintain certain structural piers that are existing on or to be added to city property, including the installation of a sump pump upon city property, to authorize the city to enter into a structural pier and sump pump franchise agreement with Arkansas Riverview Development LLC. Third and final reading.
Okay, is there any questions about this? I see 3 people who wish to speak, but I'm not sure they want to speak on this item. She just read item M3, which was added to the agenda. Okay, all in favor of the passage of M3 indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ordinance is passed. Now we can move on to a request for a second reading on ordinance number 7. Is there a motion for a second on ordinance number 7? I believe Director Wyrick wishes to speak about this. Director?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I don't really know where to start, so I'll just start from the beginning as I know it. I talked with Superintendent Poore about communications with the community in Southwest regarding this high school. And I think he did a really good job in going to the community and describing the plan as far as the sizes and the roads, how they go into the development, how they come out, parking places, those kinds of things. But where we're lacking are the intricate details that impact the neighborhood that is right next to the school. We're talking about 2,000 students, 1,020 parking places. We have a list of probably 15 to 20 items that need clarification from the school and probably need some help from the city, Public Works, in understanding how the impacts are going to be for that neighborhood. One of the things that they say in there is that they want to keep the natural buffer, but there's parking places that are right next to the natural buffer. So if we do that, then the homes are going to be impacted from slamming doors, lights, music, kids laughing, having fun, and it's going to get into the neighborhood's natural enjoyment of their backyards, their homes, that kind of thing. So Joan and I discussed this last night. Joan met with the neighborhood last night. The school district met with the neighborhood today, and they're in agreement that we can keep this ordinance on first reading. That'll give 2 weeks for the neighborhood and Public Works and the school district to get together and flesh out the details. Like, for instance, on Mableville Pike, there's going to be stacking room on Mableville Pike for buses and cars that go into the school, and that's a 2-lane road right now. And there's going to be a turnaround at Sibley Hole and the beginning property, the beginning street into the school. So how does that impact the neighborhood, and what can they expect from that? So there's just a lot of things about this ordinance, about the development, that's going to have a huge impact on the community. So what we want to try to do is visit and get the most out of this that we can, so that the people that are living there, who've enjoyed a wooded forest behind them for all these years, can have some enjoyment still of their property. So I would like to keep this on first reading until 2 weeks from today, and then we should have this ironed out and can bring it up again. Did you have anything to add, Joan?
Oh, thank you, Director Wyrick. Does any other director wish to speak to item 7? We're on ordinance number 7. Director Hancock, you were next. Did you wish to speak on this item?
No, I think Director Wyrick covered it all. We have neighborhood people here from Mavis Circle, Mableville Pike, and they met before the meeting started with the school district people, and everyone's in agreement with just leaving this on first reading and then coming back in 2 weeks.
Okay, very good. Director Hendricks, did you wish to speak on this item? Well, this came out of the Planning Commission, as is typical in terms of our process. So it would come forward. It was initiated by the school district and went through the planning process and is here as a normal course of business. That's correct. No, it's not being deferred. Let me explain to everyone that's in attendance. State law requires that ordinances be read on 3 separate occasions. That typically means, in some cities, on 3 separate meeting dates, different dates. Oftentimes, when there's an issue that there's concurrence on and agreement on, the council will suspend the rules and place the ordinance on a second reading and a third reading on the same night and pass the matter through so that it's not unnecessarily delayed. In this instance, Director Wyrick has indicated that she has questions and other people have questions that need some answers, and so she has suggested that it be left on second reading. I asked if there was a motion for second reading, and I have not heard one. So without a motion, it will remain on first reading and will be set next 2 weeks from now for second reading at our next regularly scheduled board meeting. Okay, very good. So, Director Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. And not that I'm opposed to this extension, unless I misheard BJ. I've heard her say there's been consultation with the neighborhood and with the school district. I have not heard anybody mention consultation with staff. And is this 2-week deadline just an arbitrary deadline? What are we basing this 2-week deadline on?
Well, it's really not a 2-week deadline. It's just.
Well, I mean, it's 2 weeks extension. Is this just an arbitrary deadline? Where do we get this 2 weeks time frame from?
The 2 weeks comes from the fact that if there is no motion passed to go to a second reading, it would be the next regular meeting of the board. That meeting is in 2 weeks.
Are we sure that we're going to have the information that's needed from staff here to move forward then? Or will we keep it on second reading?
I can't answer that question. I can answer the 2-week question.
We'll just have to see when this comes up 2 weeks from now, whether the questions that have been raised are answered and satisfied. Okay, we'll leave this then on first reading, and we can now move on to the separate items. Let me ask for, we got our city clerk working pretty hard here, back and forth.
We also have
People trying to
Scott's
hand in cards all the time. I mean, we hope that you will do this in the beginning of the meetings. It makes it a lot easier for us to try and run a meeting. Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read ordinance number 8.
An ordinance to dispense with the requirement of competitive bids and to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Northrop Grumman in an amount not to exceed $192,207 plus any applicable taxes to purchase 12 months of support service for the NGIT Altiris application for the 911 computer-aided dispatch system, to declare an emergency and for the purposes first reading.
There's a motion to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on second reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
What was the
second.
second?
Seconded.
What was the second, Mayor? I didn't hear a second.
Who
I
seconded?
didn't either.
Doris, say second.
Well, let me ask if one of my colleagues would make
Director
a
Wright
second.
just seconded it.
Why?
Director Wright, did you second that?
She just did.
Yes.
My golly. All right, there's a motion and a second.
What thing are they on?
All in favor of moving this to second reading indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Second reading, please.
An ordinance to dispense with requirement for competitive bids and to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Northrop Grumman in an amount not to exceed $192,207 plus any applicable taxes to purchase 12 months of support service for the NGIT Altiris application for the 911 computer-aided dispatch system, to declare an emergency. Second reading.
We suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Is there a second?
I don't even know what the hell they read.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Third and final reading, please.
An ordinance to dispense with the requirement of competitive bids and authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Northrop Grumman in an amount not to exceed $192,207 plus any applicable taxes to purchase 12 months of support service for the NGIT Altiris application from the 911 computer-aided dispatch system, to declare an emergency. Third and final reading.
Does anyone have any questions? If not, all in favor of the passage of the ordinance indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ordinance is passed, and on the emergency clause, all in favor of the emergency clause indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The emergency clause is also passed. Madam Clerk, if we could now read ordinance number 9, please.
And an ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas with structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct city staff to take such action as necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency and for the purposes first reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on second reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Second reading, please.
An ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas with structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct city staff to take such action as is necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency. Second reading.
We suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on third and final reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Third and final reading, please.
An ordinance to condemn certain structures in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas with structural fire and health hazards, to provide for summary abatement procedures, to direct city staff to take such action as is necessary to raise and remove said structures, to declare an emergency. Third and final reading.
Thank you. Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. James, is there a way that we can get a cumulative number of the homes that we've demolished by ward over this past year, and to see if there's any particular areas of our community that's suffering from extreme blight? So that way we can get those numbers.
We've done that.
I think we've got it. We can update that and send it.
Yes, with the update. Thank you.
All right, we've had the reading of this ordinance. Just so we don't have somebody come up after the fact, is there anyone here that has an ownership interest in these houses? Sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't. Anyone? Okay, we can move forward then for a vote. All in favor of the passage of this ordinance indicate by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. The ordinance is passed. And on the emergency clause, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. And the emergency clause is also passed. Thank you. The next item on our agenda are some presentations. The first one is a financial report from Sarah Lenahan, our finance director. The November 16 financial report. Sarah? Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. On the first sheet, you'll see the status of our revenues through the end of November. We had collected 92.2% of our annual budget compared to 92.3% in the previous year, and 11/12 of the budget would be 91.67%. On the next slide, you'll see that we had collected $175,029,000 of our general fund budget compared to $174.4 million in the previous year, against 11/12 of the budget at $173,985. So the revenues are approximately $1 million above the amended budget at this point, and $622,000 higher than the same period a year ago. If we look at the next slide, we'll see by category. As we've discussed many times before, the timing of our annual revenues is the general cause for this variance in comparison to our amended budget. And primarily, it's associated with the timing of the property tax revenues, which are virtually complete for the year. Many of the variances are, again, due to timing. Our sales tax receipts are generally the highest in the fourth quarter, of which November and December are those amounts. Our licenses and permits are collected primarily at the first of the year. Our intergovernmental receipts are received in their entirety in July, and they are complete for the year. If we move to the next slide, this is a slide that I added at the request of Director Campuris. This shows the budget in comparison to the revenues in comparison to the original budget. You'll recall that we performed a budget amendment during early November that reduced our revenues by approximately $2.5 million. Within that, we reduced our sales tax budget by $1.7 million and our utility franchise fees down by $1.9 million. That was partially offset by increases in our intergovernmental revenues of $938,000, and then other smaller adjustments that netted a favorable variance of $95,000. So you can see that on the previous slide, where our sales tax revenues are showing like $1.9 million below 11/12 of the annual budget, for our original budget, we're almost $3.5 million below the original budget. Our utility franchise fees are on target to our amended budget, but they were about $1.6 million below our original budget, and that was due, again, we'll talk about it in detail in a minute, but primarily due to the historically low natural gas prices and then the really mild weather that we experienced in the winter and the summer months. The next slide, you'll see comparison to the same period a year ago. So you'll see here that this takes out the issues associated with the timing of revenue collection and lets you see year over year where we really are. So our property taxes are approximately $879,000 above the same period a year ago. And as we've discussed all year long, about $650,000 of that variance is due to the inclusion of the excess commissions that were received from the county on the property taxes for 2015, but they were received too late to include them in our 2015 revenues. So those, in addition to the commissions for 2016, are included in this year's annual budget. In addition to that, the property tax values, the original assessment at the beginning of the year was 1.1% more than the previous year. You see here the real effect of our utility franchise fees. We, year over year, $1.1 million less. And then our sales tax revenue is actually slightly below where we were the same period a year ago in these numbers. So no growth in sales tax. If we move to the next slide, This shows just the month-to-month collections, and you can see they're still very volatile. We'll have a growth in sales tax one month, followed by a pretty deep decline in the next month. And that continued throughout the year. The month of November, which represents the receipts that we received at the end of January for sales that occurred in November, the city sales tax increased 4.75%. The city's portion of the county sales tax increased 3.91%. So combined, our blended sales tax collections increased 4.29% in January for November sales. That brought the year-to-date blended sales tax results to 0.36 above the amended budget and 0.32% above the same period a year ago. The annual, or the rolling 12 months growth was 0.62%. I will tell you, since this time, at the end of February, we received our December sales tax results, and those again went the other way, and we had a decline in comparison to the same period a year ago. So we actually finished the year slightly below collections for 2015. And we do believe that the impact of internet sales has a lot to do with that. Actually, I was just looking at information from Metroplan that showed that internet sales had grown 35%, I think, in comparison to the previous year. They're now approximately 8% of total sales, and they're expected to be 12% of total sales within the next few years. As you all are aware, Amazon made an announcement that they would begin collecting Arkansas sales and use tax beginning March 1st. I think they were delayed a week or so in implementing that, but we have seen that they are doing that now, so we don't really know what the impact will be. Our first glimpse of that will be with our May receipts. Okay, on the next slide, we see just the blended results that I went over, which show 4.29% growth in the month of November, a trailing 12-month growth rate of 0.62%. And on the next slide, you'll see that, again, through the January receipt of November sales, we were $324,682 ahead of our amended, or ahead of the amended budget, but that was reversed with our February collections of December. And then on the next slide, we see the impact of our 1 cent, LR 1 cent tax. And so year-to-date, you'll see that we had collected $44,362,000 in both the 5/8 cent tax that goes to operations and the 3/8 cent dedicated to our capital improvement projects. Over the life of the tax, since 2012, we've collected $234.2 million. You'll see we had projected an annual growth rate of approximately 2% per year. We've experienced 0.76%, followed by a year of 1.42%. Then last year, we had a very nice year with 3.68%. And for 2016, only 0.63% year-to-date. On the next slide, we'll look at our utility franchise fees. The first is our electric franchise payments. In our original budget, based on information from Entergy, we had forecast a 2.7% increase for the year in our revenues. You can see that through the end of November, we actually have experienced a 5% decline in our revenues, and usage is down 2%. I am happy to report, though, that in comparison to our amended budget, we're about $74,000 above the amended budget, and we do anticipate, ending in line with our amended budget or slightly above. Our gas franchise tax fees on the next slide. This is a more dramatic change. We had projected a decline of 20.5% in comparison to, or from the 2015 budget. But it was only a 7.4% decrease from our actual results in 2015 because we had had such a down year in comparison even to the budget. But as the actual results came in 26.7% below the same period last year, when we amended our budget in November, we took this into account, and again, our revenues are approximately $25,000 above the amended budget. So we are on track to achieve the amended budget results. Next, we'll move on to our general fund expenditures. Through the end of November, we had expended 89.37% of our annual budget in comparison to 87.87% a year ago. And again, a straight 11/12 will be 91.67%. So we're below budget on our expenditures. As we turn the page, you'll see that we had expended 167, the blue number, 167,703,000 in comparison to an annual, or 11/12 of the budget is 172,012,249. So we are about 4.3 million below budget and about 6.7 million above the same period a year ago. If we look at our expenditures by department on the next slide, the 1.8 million favorable variance in general administration is due strictly to the timing of our annual payments that we make on our actuarially determined pension plan and some post-employment benefits. Those are actuarially determined amounts that we make at the end of the year. And those are the primary causes behind that 1.8 million favorable variance. Otherwise, we're in line with our budget, and we will be in line with the budget when I provide the December report. We have already talked in the last couple of months, the community programs budget will be on track. We made an adjustment in December to reclassify some expenditures for some people who are funded with children, youth, and family program dollars that had not been charged appropriately when we had staff turnover. So we've reclassified those expenses from the time they were hired through the end of the year in one adjustment, and that will be reflected in the December financial report. As we move down the line, our golf expenditures are over budget. The personnel cost is over budget by about $75,000. The majority of that expense is offset by vacation and sick payouts and vacancy savings reimbursements that happen in December. But other operating expenses exceed budget by approximately $100,000, and a lot of that is due to some of the cost of items at the pro shop and at the concessions, but also due to additional land maintenance and expenses that occurred with the resurfacing and all of War Memorial. On the zoo, and I do anticipate, part of this is also due to the timing of the first tee contributions. So again, this variance will be reduced, but I do expect golf to be over budget at the end of the year. The zoo unfavorable variance is due to the timing of expenses. They will be in line with budget once the December report is finalized. So there will not be a negative variance, or at least I do not anticipate one for the zoo. The fire department, approximately $565,000 of the unfavorable variance in fire is due to the timing of the pension contribution for the closed fire pension plan, and we have specifically dedicated revenues. So those revenues will completely offset that portion of the variance. The remaining $209,000 is due primarily to overtime, clothing allowances, and additional EMT costs. So there may be a small unfavorable variance in fire, just a very small percentage of their overall budget. For the police department, approximately $2 million of the favorable variance is due to the timing of the pension contributions. Again, we made approximately $2.1 million contribution in December associated with excess revenue. So these are revenues that are collected from the dedicated 1 mil property tax levy, the $500,000 city sales tax contribution that's over the amount that lot fee bills us on a monthly basis for the consolidation. But we committed that we would contribute 100% of those revenues annually, and so we make a lump sum contribution at the end of the year in order to pay down that unfunded liability. So that expense will be reflected in December too. So overall, we do anticipate that the expenditures will be in line with our amended budget. On the next slide, we'll see the vacant positions. As of November, we had, in our budget amendment, set an amended vacancy goal of $7,250,000, which helped to offset some of the reductions in revenue that we anticipated and reflected the additional time it was taking to fill some of those authorized positions in police, in particular, where the recruiting timeframe is so long. We actually achieved that goal as of November 18th. We had 132 budgeted positions unfilled in the general fund. Of those, approximately 61 were police officer positions. In our vacation and sick payouts, we had estimated a budget of $1,350,000 for the year. Through the end of November, we had expended $1,292,000. And then on the following page, you'll see how we're going with our trend. We're actually right about where we were December 2015. We did have a decline in October associated with the graduation of our fire recruit school. And then there were some additional positions filled in December that brought the number down to 132. And so that is where we currently stand. We did graduate 9 additional police officers in February. They have 2 recruit classes, February 2017. They have 2 recruit classes scheduled for the coming year to try to address those vacant positions. And that concludes the November financial report.
Thank you, Sarah. Director Camburis.
Sarah, would you go over again, in the end, how far we were below 2015 and 16?
It was I don't have the exact number in front of me. I think it was 0.16%. It was, less than 0.2% less than the same period a year ago, but absolutely no growth. And that's even with all of the dynamic activity we've had throughout the city. When you think about all of the activity around the Bass Pro Shop and that new development, there's a lot going on in the city. This really has an awful lot to do with our
of all the things I've heard tonight, that may be the most appalling in a pretty bad session. There are not words to tell you how bad that is for this city, or for all cities in the United States. If we can have what we're going to have going on here and have that occur, it is pitiful. One thing, what was our projection for 17 for sales tax growth?
We projected 1.5% growth from our amended budget, which was a deflated budget. We're hopeful that, the increase with the Amazon sales will help somewhat. And then there are some bills before the legislature, although we are running out of time, that would, there are 2 particular bills, and SB, I think it's 140, is one that would, for out-of-state sellers that do over, I think, $100,000 in business and more than 200 transactions would be required to collect and remit sales tax. And then there's another bill that would require, a House bill that would require reporting from out-of-state sellers separately from the delivery of an invoice to the customer. They would be required to provide a statement to the customer of what taxes are due and let them know that they're required to file a use tax return. And then at the end of the year, they would be required to file an annual statement to both the buyer and the Department of Finance and Administration that would itemize or list those sales. So both of those would go a long way in capturing the out-of-state sales. I think both of them are somewhat stalled, where there's a little argument on how they would spend any collections they would receive.
Well,
So I don't know whether either of those will move forward, but we're very hopeful that they would.
and Tom, you're assuring me again that if there's any revenues from the Amazon sales, the state has no discretion over us not getting those taxes, per the Constitution.
Director Campuris, that's correct. The state will hold a 3% handling charge that's set up by statute, but the rest of the revenues would come to the city.
Okay, and then, Sarah, just as a, looking ahead, for 2017, with our franchise fees, the weather conditions and the price of natural gas, when do we need to start looking at our first budget amendment?
Well, we have not even received our first month of revenue for franchise or for sales tax. We won't see that until really March, sometime end of this month, we'll see our first sales tax numbers.
So March will be the first time we can really start seeing
Right,
where we are.
right.
And then, Mayor,
Yeah,
again.
it is, but it'll be the end of the month, I'm sorry. We
That's
should, we should get our first look at sales tax any day.
Well, it's a pretty dismal report, no offense. I mean, it's not your fault. I mean, facts are facts, but this is a pretty dismal
But
report.
I do want to remind you, it will be May before we see any impact of the Amazon change.
And Mayor, I know we made a few little tactical errors, but have we had any comment from our two senators or our representative about coming to talk to us about this issue?
I have not received any written response from any of them. I have had direct conversation with Senator Bozeman, who is supportive of the e-fairness tax act that's in Congress. I can tell you that Steve Womack, the congressman from Northwest Arkansas, is a champion of it. He has been one of the architects of it. And I also know that Congressman Crawford is for it. Senator Cotton, Congressman Hill, our second district congressman, and Congressman Westerman have not indicated any support for it. Let me tell you where. Senator Bozeman said that he'd be happy to visit. He wasn't sure if he could make it to one of these meetings or not. I heard also from Congressman Hill, also who indicated he'd be willing to visit with us. But again, they have not set up anything through the city manager's office, which we asked them to do at this point in time.
Tom, I'd like you, how often do we do this budget presentation, Sarah?
Well, we try to do it
Every
monthly.
month.
It gets deferred every now and then, but.
Well, I know. Then monthly, I'd like you to send them a copy of it with a cover letter explaining our tax revenues, and send them a synopsis of 2016 and where our revenues fell in the face of a vibrant economy. And have the mayor sign it, but get it out of here next week. To all
Let me,
6 of them.
Dean, let me mention that I have had the opportunity over the last week to lobby several people in Congress about these items, this being one of the major items. And the Senate, of course, passed this back in I believe, 2013. It has been held up in the House in a variety of different ways. It is in the Judiciary Committee. Chairman Goodlatte refuses to let it get out of the Judiciary Committee. Congressman Chaffetz is handling it for the people that want to get it out of the committee and get it passed. I asked one of our congressmen what it was going to take to get it out of the Judiciary Committee, and he said it's going to take a call from the White House and 140 characters.
Well,
I'm telling you that this is, there is every organization, every national organization, whether it be the City Managers Association, the National League of Cities, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National Association of Counties, et cetera, are all pushing to try and get this done at the congressional
And I
level.
appreciate you lobbying them, but my job, and the 11 of us up here, is this city's job.
I agree with
And
you.
I've got 6 people I've got 3 people I can talk to, and it's frustrating that we can't talk to them. And that is just a fact of life. I can't, and I'm not going to Washington to try to lobby someone, but I can try to talk to the 3 people that are involved. And it's absolutely malfeasance on our part not to do something about it. And I think it's malfeasance on the legislature's part not to be taking a more active role. Every one of those people represents some city or some community, and why they sit out there and worry about the things they worry about, and they're gonna, we have less tax revenue in 16 than we did in 15, correct?
3.5 million less, at least based on this report,
Well, that was in that was
to the original budget.
to the original budget, which included a growth rate in the original budget. So
But,
no, we're
but,
not
but I'm
that far
talking
below
about
last year.
dollar to dollar, we're, almost 2% down. And we need to send the same letter to every one of the people in our representatives that represent our city and say, look what you're doing to us. Get off your duff and do something about this. I mean, we are having a real problem and we're going to wilt on the vine. I mean, everything we do is predicated, 50% of our budget comes from tax revenues. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So if you have a negative flow of income and you have contracts that have step increases in it, guess what's going to happen? We're going to be 2 or 3 years what we were 10 years ago when we passed the last tax. And the money is out there. It should be collected. It's not a new tax. And you've got the numbers on it. And Amazon sales are going to make a little dent, but they're not going to make the big dent. So, we need to get realistic about it and quit talking about things that we can't do anything about and start saying to our representatives that represent this city and this county, get off your duff and do something about it. And we need to talk to the people in the state and the Senate and the House that represent us, do something about it, or we're going to just die on the vine here. It's just crazy.
Well, and Emily's about to get up and give a report too on the legislature here at the state, but I do know that, there's been a lot of contact, from all of the mayors and city managers and other folks with the state legislature to move on these issues.
There's been a full court press out at the legislature as well. And I would encourage board members, obviously, I wrote the letter on behalf of all of us, and I did hear orally from Congressman Hill and from certainly from Senator Boseman, who is supportive of it. This is not a Senate issue right now. It's a House of Representatives issue. But I'd encourage all of you to make your appointments with your congressman and register that as well. I mean, I don't know if I can get them on TV or not. They don't seem to want to come to this meeting.
Well, but Tom, I think if you
write
make
to
a
him.
resolution up that we send each month our budget and we send a synopsis of what happened in 2016 and we get it out in the next week. I mean, I think this is just nuts.
You express the frustration of cities and city councils and mayors from around the country. We all have that frustration. Okay, let's see, legislative report. Emily. Oh, well, excuse me, all right. On this issue, Director Hendricks.
I want to tell Dean that I do talk to email congressmen in Washington, D.C. But another thing that I want to say is that I know of 2 ordinances that I have attempted to put on here to make us bring revenue into this city. And I think Tom knows what I'm talking about. With these people putting all this garbage and furniture on the curb, make these landlords pay. That's who you should go in West Little Rock, in my area, Ward 1, and you would see houses just stacked with furniture on the curb. That can bring you income. I think we're lazy. Let's start at home first. That's what I say. And Tom, we'll try that again, that ordinance that I have asked for that would bring us multi-million dollars of money. But I think it's because most of the landlords are Caucasian. That's my assumption, that you don't want to charge these people. I have to talk about color because I know where I live, okay? The next thing that I want to talk about is the budget. I need you. Those authorized unpaid, is that money that's lying somewhere where employees are not hired?
Now, when we adopt the annual budget, the vacancy savings is an estimate of the in effect, what we're doing is budgeting 95% of the gross personnel cost. And that takes into account the fact that even when you're trying to fill positions, such as our vacant police or fire positions, that there is a period of time from the time somebody retires or leaves service to the vetting, the recruit class, and all that can take place before we can get those positions filled. So there's a period of time where those positions are vacant. This is not identified specific positions that we're going to hold vacant. And when we put that vacancy factor into our budget, it is a reduction of the estimated personnel cost if we were to have 100% personnel throughout the year with no retirements, no vacancies, no turnover whatsoever.
But this is revenue sitting somewhere.
This is not revenue. This is an offset to the expense that we estimate. So in effect, instead of budgeting 100% of our personnel cost, we're only budgeting about 95%.
That explains it. Thank you.
Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I applaud you and Dean for periodically bringing this issue up, and I'm not sure, I know we've written letters before, and Tom, I'm not sure we've done a resolution on this before, but I think, Mayor, it'd be helpful for me, I think, to get some kind of sense of how much we've done in terms of letters or resolutions and what else we need to do to make this a reality. And I also want to dovetail Dean's point, Sarah, if you had a capacity right now, if not, you can in the near future. Can we quantify that percentage to dollars amount, actual dollar amounts? Because Dean talks about how dismal it is, and I'm not sure that sinks in with people if we don't have actual dollar amounts. So do we have the capacity to quantify those percentages to actual dollar amounts?
We do, and I'll be bringing that to you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. I think that may show a little bit more clearly how dismal this is, Dean.
I mean,
And Mayor, if you can give us a report on what we've done to date in terms
Yeah,
of
we've
letters
done
or
a-
resolutions. I
well,
know we've
we've-
done a couple of letters at least.
We've done a resolution, we've done letters. I'm happy to send the letter again to them and ask them to respond again to come to see and visit with us.
I just
I
want
would
to
be
make
supportive
one,
of that
How
too, Mayor.
successful that'll be,
I'd be
but-
really supportive of that. I'm
I just
sorry,
want to
Sarah.
make one point. Even, it's not so much that a decline in revenue is obviously hurtful, but even just maintaining revenue at a no growth is a distinct problem because your costs are increasing. You know, the cost of your fire and your police and everything else increases. So if your revenue stays flat and your expenditures are increasing, then you're in a deficit position. So you don't have to have a reduction in revenue in comparison to the previous year. No growth is already a problem.
And I just think that needs to be clarified so everybody have a clear understanding of what we're talking about here. I appreciate that.
Before we move on to the legislative update, Director Fortson, you're recognized, please.
Well, I agree with everything Director Capuris said because it's very frustrating from the revenue side. But the other problem that is coming down the road, and Sarah referred to it, is we're balancing that budget effectively with $7 million worth of vacant positions. And we're trying, and we're having neighborhood meetings, and we had a big presentation some 3 weeks ago in here about the recruitment program that the police department's starting because people say they want more people on the street enforcing the law. We have talked about the shortage in the 911 call center and efforts being made to adjust salaries and get more people there. The fact remains that if the revenue trend stays as Dr. Capuris mentioned it, and if we go further into trying to remedy some of those problems, we're going to be facing in the next 2, 3, 4 months greater pressure because the trying to balance the budget purely with vacancies and then trying at the same time to fill the needs that we feel in public safety, we're going to see a crisis on the budget matter before this year's ended.
Well, that's a very good point, Director Fortson, and as the city manager and I get into preparing a budget for next year, you know, we've really laid down a challenge to staff to make up that vacancy factor on our police department, and it's of great concern to the community. It's a great concern, I know, to every one of you, as well as myself. When you read about that and you read about the vacancies in 911, I think the citizens have a right to demand that we handle that. And so that means that we're going to have to we're going to have to tighten the belt someplace else. I am very hopeful that by the end of the year, we're going to do better than make up half of those police officer positions that are vacant. And if that's the case, then we're looking at about a $3 million difference right there. So yeah, it's a very good point to be made, and I'm like Director Campiris. I don't, even if Amazon is voluntarily collecting it, that's just one company out of thousands probably that are online sales. So I don't think that's going to necessarily make a significant difference in our overall revenue. Director Richardson.
Yes, Mayor. Do we have any kind of sense of how many of these companies need to be involved in this to make up what we're talking about? And we know we got Amazon, but is there anybody looking at the actual numbers of companies and sales amount that we need to have come in to actually address these deficits we keep projecting?
There have been some good, there's been some good modeling on that. The most recent numbers I get had to do with 2011, 12, and 13. And it was about $2.3 million to the city of Little Rock over that 36-month period of time. If the percentage is going up, and it's 8% of total sales last year and 12% of total sales, as I understood Sarah to indicate it's going to go up to, it's going to be, substantially over $1 million a year to the city of Little Rock, in my opinion.
Is that enough to cover the gap we're projecting, or is anybody looking at that?
I mean, that's all speculation. I can't.
Sure.
I can't tell you right now, but it's certainly a significant element. We're looking at an unemployment rate of 3.8%. We're
for the
very
state
well.
or
We're
city,
doing very well in comparison to our competitive cities. We're second in the state, only behind Fayetteville.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And so, while I know that's an overall number, and certainly there are certain segments of our community that are suffering a higher unemployment rate, the fact, we haven't had 3.8% unemployment in years.
But I would submit to you, we're talking that unemployment rate for the city.
That's the unemployment rate for the city. But my point is that if that's a reflection of people working and the ability to, they spend their money. But
we also know there are certain segments of our community where it's 10 times that amount. We know certain parts of our community, the unemployment rate is 10, 15, 20%.
Sure. I'm not trying to, the point I'm trying to make is that when you have low unemployment, you're having people employed, which means that the money that they're getting by virtue of employment is getting spent 2 or 3 times over in the community, over in the community, and that should be a good sign. It doesn't seem to be having anywhere near the effect that it ought to have.
Thank you, sir.
Director Fortson.
Just one comment, Director Richardson. It's awfully hard to quantify that, but 2 things that give us a clue. First, when we attended the groundbreaking, not the groundbreaking, the dedication of the new FedEx Center in Southwest Little Rock this past summer, the statement was made from the podium that they were enjoying double-digit growth in services to Central Arkansas. Well, double-digit growth indicates, most of what they're delivering are items that have been purchased by people on the internet. So if we don't know how many dollars that is, but if they're having double-digit growth, that's one of 2 major delivery services. You can assume it's substantial dollars. That's a great point.
Okay, well, before we move on to our legislative update, I'd like to recognize a young man that has been getting his citizenship in the community badge from Boy Scout Troop 12, Hayes Laidlaw. Hayes, will you stand up? Why don't you come forward and tell us where you go to school and where your Boy Scout troop is.
I go to Episcopal Collegiate School, and my Boy Scout troop is at Pulaski Heights United Methodist Church.
Very good. Will you want to introduce your mother?
My mother is Ann Laidlaw.
Hi, Ann. Many of you know Ann is the head of the Arkansas Building Authority, and we work with her closely on a variety of different projects. So thank you for being here. I hope you earned your Citizenship in the Community Award. You had a little interesting conversation tonight.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Okay, Emily.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. I'll start off with the online sales tax since that's what y'all have been discussing. Sarah's right. Senate Bill 140 by Senator Files has passed the Senate, thanks to support from many. Senator Files is the senator's name. And it is in the House Revenue and Tax Committee. And I understand there are negotiations going on between some legislators on the committee and the executive branch. There are questions about how this additional state revenue that comes in will be spent. So we'll see how that goes. I can tell you that the mayors who have members on that committee have reached out to the members from their towns and districts. So people are doing all they can on that. House Bill 1388 is Representative Douglas's bill, and it has passed the House, and as Sarah mentioned, it provides notice to people about taxes they owe, and that's being held in the Senate. And then there are also several bills out there that would dictate how the new state revenue would be spent, and so we're watching those as well. One that's interesting is House Bill 2085 that would put lots of the money towards highways. And then in terms of our agenda, our procurement bill to allow for submission of electronic bids is now Act 170. And our bill to allow for different addresses of record to be used when sending notices to property owners for code violations is now Act 495. Our bill regarding criminal abatement is in the Senate Judiciary Committee. The Municipal League bill on historical rehabilitation income tax credits is now Act 493. And the Municipal League's bill concerning the discount that's available to taxpayers for prompt submission of sales tax returns passed the Senate and has gotten out of the House Revenue and Tax Committee, so it's headed to the full House next. Also, I wanted to let you know there are several special election bills. Senate Bill 723 by Senator Wallace limits special elections to a couple of times a year. The preferential primary, I believe, and the general election. And that bill did get out of the Senate State Agencies Committee. It was amended yesterday to include some emergency special election provisions, so it has not gone to the full Senate yet. House Bill 1549 on municipal sewer service by Representative Davis has been withdrawn for interim study. House Bill 1655, which would amend, House Bill 1655 concerning annexation within 1/2 mile of a state park, which would allow land to be annexed if it contains a school, is now Act 536. And also Senate Bill 519 to create a separate holiday for Martin Luther King Jr. was publicly signed today as well. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions.
Director Wyrick.
Thank you, Mayor. There were a lot of procurement bills that have been floating around at the Capitol, and I attended the Airport Commission meeting today, and they were really concerned about a Senate Bill 521. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, ma'am.
It adds political subdivisions, which are counties, school districts, cities of the first class, second class, and incorporated towns. And they were saying that the airport was also considered a political subdivision. It does a lot to the procurement laws, and they're saying that that puts the airport in violation with FAA federal dollars that come in. So they're very, very much concerned about that. And I was just curious, is it going to have a big impact on the city? Would MIMS be part of a political subdivision? Would our sewer, would our water be political subdivisions, and would it have impact on them?
It would impact the city, I can tell you that, and I'm not sure about the exact definition of political subdivision, so I'll have to get back to you on that. And that's
Well,
one we're
apparently the
definitely-
airport has determined that they're part of a political subdivision, so I'm just thinking about the other quasi-governmental agencies that we have. So if you would look into that and.
Sure.
And I don't know if you're already tracking it or not. You
Yes,
are?
ma'am.
Okay, okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Yes, Mayor. Emily, we passed a resolution supporting the separation of MLK and Robert E. Lee. Did that make it to the governor's office or just stay with our representatives? Did the governor have a chance to see that?
It was publicly signed today.
Okay, thank you. But the governor did see our resolution in support of separating.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I'm sorry.
Emily, if you would let us know, let me know on the SB 140, you say it's in House Revenue and Tax, and then also HB 1388. I'm familiar with some of the issues in House Revenue and Tax, and I will tell you that, the debate over how that money should be spent at the state level is having a big detrimental impact on our ability to get this thing passed. And we need to speak loudly to our state representatives that are on Revenue and Tax to let that thing out. And I'm all for negotiations on whatever they want to see the state money spent for. But I don't want the city to be I don't want cities to be a sacrificial lamb and stand on this issue in defeat because of what the state might want to do with the money as opposed to what we need the money for. So I would urge all of you to call all of your state representatives on this issue. Many of them are in the House Revenue and Tax. That was pretty much a 50-50 split in terms of Democrats and Republicans. And this is being supported, well, hopefully there's bipartisan support for this ultimately. Let me put it like that. There should be. And then the other thing I will mention, the Municipal League and many of our people in the business community are very much opposed to SB 723, which restricts the ability to call special elections on important issues. So I know they're trying to put in a bunch of exceptions to it. We got all sorts of things like millage elections for schools. We've got special elections that we call for airports, for Robinson Center, for other things like that. And by forcing it to be only done twice a year, it really restricts the local control question that we should have reserved for ourselves to make that decision. Anybody that knows any of the special elections we've done, we campaign these things, people know about them, and they either show up to vote or they don't show up to vote, but they know about them, and that's the issue and that I think is so very important to try and suggest to our legislators. SB 723 is not going to be good for the city. It's not going to be good for the growth of the city. So again, I urge my colleagues here to speak up on that issue to our state, to our various state representatives on that piece of legislation. Vice Mayor Webb, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Emily, and this may be for you or maybe for Tom. If the governor signs House Bill 1249 tomorrow, as he is expected to do, are we going to have to change our signage or have a discussion about that here? It's about the guns.
Is that the carrying the guns everywhere thing?
It's the guns everywhere bill.
The guns everywhere, Bill.
I will defer to Tom.
The mayor may not want you to. It
Well,
seems to me that the owner of a building can't have the right to exclude taken from them without it costing. So I think that the city's got some options if they wish to use them.
And I would also say that the governor is holding a news conference tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and I believe the subject line was that he would announce his intentions. I think that's what it said on House Bill 1249.
And his spokesperson said it was likely that he would sign it. But I just wanted us to be prepared to have this discussion if there's something we need to do.
Well, I wish they would look at the videos of the city council out of, I believe it was out of, I think it was Springfield. I may have the city wrong, where somebody was upset in the city council meeting. They came in and shot half the board, and the mayor died a couple months later. The city attorney, I think, escaped, maybe not. But in all seriousness.
Professional courtesy.
in all seriousness, it was a very serious matter, which is why, and then there was a school board, and then there was a video on that, and he was literally closer than Emily is to me, and somehow missed everybody. But that was caught on camera. And after that, we put in, I talked to the city manager and insisted that we put in magnometers and put in security. So rather than be reactive to a disaster, we want to be proactive. So it is very distressing that we see what's going on about this. I just find it just unconscionable. We cannot protect ourselves, and we're dealing with very serious issues. So I suppose the argument is that everybody here can go get a concealed weapon permit and the extra lessons and carry their own pearl-handled six-shooters. So anyway, Director Hendricks, you're recognized, please.
You almost made me forget what I wanted to ask. I think I could not hear her subject.
Director
I
Webb?
think they told me it was about the guards. But, Mayor, I wanted to ask you, you were talking about whatever this is you wanted us to support, but what was the topic of that?
I believe
moment
the
ago.
online sales.
What was it?
Online sales tax, and it was Senate Bill 140.
Is that what you were suggesting that we talk to our legislators about?
Yes, specifically, yes, your local representatives, House Revenue and Taxation, it's in the committee there.
Okay.
And then
It was another one.
HB 1388 is, I guess, in the Senate Revenue and Tax
That has gotten out of Senate Revenue and Tax, and it's,
on the floor?
well, it's not on the calendar, but
Not yet.
it could be considered by the Senate.
Okay.
Full Senate.
And so the other one was then the artificial times to hold special elections.
Oh, that's, what elections were you talking about? This is school board elections?
Well, it could be, no, it wouldn't be necessarily school board elections.
But
It
it
would
was
be
one in particular.
special elections.
Well, I recall reading something about they wanted to move the school board elections here.
Well, those have been moved to November, if I recall.
Yeah, I supported that. I really did, because a lot of people.
We're not talking about that, though.
Okay, you're not talking about that, you're talking about the revenue. Okay, all right.
Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
I was just, wanted to comment on this conceal and carry thing at our meeting, in public buildings. I mean, this is not playing well nationally for the image of Arkansas. And I don't know if our legislators even care, but it makes us seem very backwards. And I've heard some comments about Arkansas on national radio stations, and I'm on TuneIn, and I'm hearing things, people snickering at the state for passing all these laws that literally put our people in danger, and we seem to think that this is okay. And I just would like to know some of the rationale for some of this stuff. At even a regular meeting where you don't have a whole bunch of contentious items on an agenda, people get upset. So just imagine if you deal with a rezoning issue and somebody's upset and they got a gun. It's just ridiculous. So, anyway, that was just my 2 cents worth. I mean, I've just been hearing us getting laughed at a lot nationally.
Director Hendricks, you're recognized again, please.
I wanted to comment on what Director Wright has said. This is going on all over the nation with these guns. Huh? And I'm surprised to be hearing about us on some of this. Yeah, but yeah, it's sad. It's praying time. It's praying time. That's what it is.
Vice Mayor Webb, you're
Mr. Mayor,
recognized.
Tom, you just said that we would have some options, and if this is signed into law tomorrow, can we get that information as quickly as possible so we know what those options are, so we can move forward? Hopefully, the group will want to move forward and not have guns in this building.
I'm not sure there's going to be a way.
If that's an option.
I don't think it's. All right, very good. Yes, we'll get that if it gets signed into law. All right, thank you very much, Emily. Okay, we can now, by the way, I guess in the context of that discussion, I have not heard from anyone concerning the appeal that Mr. Scrabel has filed to allow him to be in our meetings or in public buildings. So I will be sending a letter tomorrow to his attorney indicating that his appeal has been denied.
Should we vote on that individual? Because I don't like to be proper to
Well, there's,
Is that what you're talking about? That you're going to send this man, yes or nay, whether this can come back to the meetings?
well, there's no motions in front of us, so, I mean, unless somebody makes a motion, I'm going to take the lack of a desire to have a conversation about it as a denial of the request to waive the, or lift the suspension.
I would like to, may I make a motion?
You may?
I may make a motion that, who is this to the attorney about the individual? That Mr. Scrabel would be allowed to attend these meetings. This is a public place.
So your motion is to allow Mr. Scrabel to?
That's right. This is a public place.
All right. So the motion is made by Director Hendricks to lift the ban that the city manager has placed on Mr. Scrabel. Is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion?
Okay.
The motion dies for failure of a second.
Would
All
you,
right.
would you let the record show that I am supportive of that man coming to this place? I don't want to be included in this mess. I think we're using Bruce as a shield, which he's been used all the time. That's all it's about.
There's probably people that would beg to argue with you about that, but we won't take time to do that tonight.
I know.
All right, Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Mayor, this is a continuation on the gun issue. I'd like Mr. Jones to provide me with a report on the recent uptick in the shootings that I've had. There have been 3 that I know of in the last 4 days in the area from University and Colonel Glenn down to the Kroger. One resulted in a death. And one was at the apartment complex, one was at the Kroger. And I need to know if Little Rock Police know what's behind this. Okay?
All right, Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to talk about one other issue before, but I think Director Wright, I think you brought up a great point, and I'm certain, based on the work that we've done in the community with crisis response, there are people out in the community may know more than the police about these issues, may know more about intervening before they graduate to these acts of violence and deal with them in a way that we're not talking about policing. I think there may be people sitting in the audience who have a greater sense, because not everyone talks to the police. There are people out in our community that talk to individuals who work in the community, they know in the community. And I think we need to reactivate, or I'm trying to find the correct word, reactivate, or reinstitute some of the crisis response team work we had in the city that was funded by the PIT funding that seems to be minimized, or in some cases already eliminated. And I think that's a good point of clarification in terms of how we address this issue. I mean, this is not something we're going to be able to police our way out of, plain and clear. I mean, it's not something we're going to be able to jail our way out of. Because what we're seeing right now, we're seeing the same kind of mindset come back in the community that we had in the early 90s. Mayor, and you were prosecuting attorney then, and you know something about what I'm talking about. And I think we need to quit politicizing the lives of these people in our community and get about doing what the people know what needs to be done, equipping them with the proper resources so they can do what they need to do. And Director Hendricks, back to your point, the decision with Luke, that wasn't a policy question. That was an administrative action based on our city manager making that decision. It wasn't anything that we voted about or talked about. That wasn't policy. It was just an administrative action, and I support him on that, and I think we need to be supportive of that because I don't think that was a policy question. Thank you, Mayor.
Director Richardson, that's not accurate. Mr. Scribble was banned from the entrance into City Hall because of the threats that were made by email to Mr. Moore personally on a direct computer to him, not just a general city manager computer like we've got, and to an employee in the Department of Public Works. That resulted in a conviction for terroristic threatening. And when that conviction was affirmed by the circuit court, the circuit judge kept that ban in place for 1 year. We put forth a second letter to him. At the end of that 1 year period, assuming that he finished his probation, then he could apply again. Mr. Moore would make the administrative decision, but there would be an appeal to this board because of the First Amendment issue. Mr. Moore, based upon the violence that was suggested in the complaints by Mr. Scribble, one was there will be blood in the streets, and another one was a direct confrontation about taking your days are numbered, as to Mr. Moore, wished to continue the ban for a 1 year period of time. We have found some authority that when violence is the issue behind that, then that doesn't necessarily adversely implicate First Amendment rights. And so that's where the 1 year came from him. But Mr. Scribble has appealed that to this board to say that you've got the authority to overrule Mr. Moore. The appeal, which you all got a copy of, essentially said that the threats were not that meaningful, that he hasn't been a problem, and that he has been in City Hall since that time for various meetings, and that's true. But the meetings were in regard to litigation, and he was under the accompaniment of his attorney, and special arrangements were made for him to be here during that period of time. So, yes, it is a policy question for the board as to whether they wish to overturn Mr. Moore's decision. I think that the mayor is right. It doesn't take an actual vote to overturn it. And what has happened is that there has been no vote to do so. The mayor had given that information, and so he's prepared now to send the letter to Mr. Scribble to say that his appeal is denied.
Mr. Richardson, do you have a response to that?
Yes, Tom, thanks for that point of clarification, and I do appreciate you keeping us abreast of this situation, and I understand about the appeal. And his ban is not just from City Hall, it's from all city buildings, correct?
Not exactly. It's from the inside of city buildings such as City Hall, the community centers, and so forth. It does not ban him from any parks. It does not ban him from any right-of-ways. It doesn't ban him from restrooms. And it doesn't ban him from any of those buildings if he's requested to come to those buildings by a city employee.
It doesn't ban him from the police department either, does it?
He has absolute rights to be in contact with the police and fire and all emergency services, and he has a constitutional right to write, email, or call any of you that he wishes to do so.
Thank you for keeping us abreast of that, Tom. I appreciate it.
And he's been exercising his First Amendment rights on the corner of Broadway and Markham Street. Yeah. So I wave at him all the time.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you too, Mayor.
Okay, Director, is there anything else about that issue?
My light is on.
You want to speak about Mr. Scribble, all right?
I want to make sure that what I have suggested, and I'm talking strictly to Tom right now. Tom, can you explain to me what the mayor is asking? Is he asking for our support? Is that coming from him? How is this handled?
What has happened is that this is an unusual situation, and since I've been with the city attorney's office, I only know one other person who was ever banned from a facility, and the board ended up overturning that.
Okay.
That was a gentleman who I think had had a little bit too much beer, and on one of the tee boxes at the War Memorial Golf Course, instead of shooting towards the hole, he shot towards the freeway and created a very serious public safety danger on I-630. The board, on that occasion, allowed the person to come back on a best behavior situation, and I think that he behaved himself. You were still the city attorney at that time, Mayor.
I don't remember that one.
The problem here is that this potentially implicates a First Amendment issue, and therefore there has to be, under the law, an opportunity for an appeal if there is an administrative decision not to let Mr. Scrabble back in. Mr. Moore has made that decision. So the board needs to determine whether or not to uphold that decision by Mr. Moore. The mayor has determined that unless he heard from others saying that we need to do something else, he was going to uphold Mr. Moore's decision, and I think that's what the discussion
Okay,
tonight
but
has
my
been.
position is that I do not oppose Mr. whatever his name coming back here. So I want to make sure that when the mayor sends his letter, that it's known that I'm not afraid of Luke. These people need to know God. That's how I feel about it. Let him come back into this building. So I oppose, that would be Bruce's suggestion, or whose suggestion is this?
Bruce has said that he cannot come back into the city buildings for a period of 1
So
year.
what are we supposed to be doing now with that package that he got from the attorney?
My understanding is that this discussion has supported the mayor's conclusion that the appeal is denied, and then your motion was made to let him back in and had no second. So,
Yeah.
so
What can I do as an individual?
you've done it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not, the mayor will not
I'm
say
not
it was a
covering up for
unanimous
these people. If
decision
they're
of the
scared,
board.
that's their business.
Right.
Okay?
Does anyone else want to speak about the Mr. Scrabble matter?
Air pistol too.
Pardon? I'm getting ready to move on to the next item. Director Adcock, you're recognized, please.
Yes. Mr. James, we hired a consultant a few months ago to find some tenants for the 12th Street Police Station, the lower level, and I haven't noticed any businesses moving in. Can you give us an update
Participation.
on the consultants that we hired and if they've brought us any tenants?
I know there's been some discussion with various people. No tenants have been identified just yet.
Are we still paying him? Are we looking for another consultant? Or
That I don't know, but I'll check.
I'd like to know how much money we've paid him with no results.
Okay?
Thank you.
Is it time for citizen participation?
Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Mr. Moore, no, I'm sorry, James. Mr. Jones. I want to follow back up on what Director Richardson was saying about the crisis intervention component of PIT. Can you provide some information as to whether or not that concept still exists within our PIT construct? And if so, how do we reactivate it? Because this is getting increasingly bad. I've had 2 deaths now on the streets, one on Colonel Glenn, one on Barrow. People shot down. Some of the video made it to Facebook. This is bad. We have spent millions of dollars on prevention and intervention, yet to be right back in this position again. And I just would like to know what the police are saying is behind this rash of shootings, because I will remind the board, the mayor, that from October 30th to November 15th, I had 39 individual incidents of gunfire. And now here we are in February, the shooting on Barrow, 32nd and Barrow. Now, this week, last 4 days, 3 individual shootings. There is something going on, and I need to understand what we are facing. You can't fight it if you don't know what it is. Is it drugs? Is it gangs? In other words, what can we do? Am I being clear as to what I'm looking for? Thank you.
Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. That if I'm understanding this correctly, and Dwight can let me know, there's a current RFQ out for a crisis response team, correct? I just got hold of a RFQ today from community programs, and I'll say that as I made mention ago, Director Wright, there are a couple of people in this room know about what's going on in there, and it goes back to what we talked about many moons ago about a philosophy in terms of hiring people, getting the right people out in the community. It's an old adage that we hire the person with the right attitude and train them versus hiring the person with the right training and work on their attitude. So it has to be a combination. That has to be done in a conceptual way where it's going to produce some results that they know the community and the community knows them. And all this stuff dates back to last August, with I think the shooting on 13th and Jones, and you had one on 16th and Payton. There are 3 particular gangs, I'm not going to mention their names, that are currently involved. And the gang involvement is not the issue of the violence. It happens to be some financial stuff going on, and they not evolve into gang violence. So it end up being involved in 2 or 3 different gangs, but it's the gang themselves, the colors themselves is not the source of what's going on right now. And there are people in this room right now who can speak to that. Well, we need to have the finance. You're right. I agree with you on that. We need to have the financing to support those people to go out there and do their work.
Director Hendricks, you're recognized, please.
Mayor, I know I'm not the mayor, but in all fairness, after presentation, citizen communication was next. And I guess I'm guilty too of talking. So when do these people get a chance to speak?
As soon as you finish.
Please, let them talk. We've gone over limit. We've been unfair to them. Right after 11 was citizen participation. Come on.
All right, well, we can now move on to citizen communication. This is an opportunity for citizens who have 3 minutes that are allowed to present a specific item which has not been previously brought to the attention of the board and is not already on the agenda. And the time is allotted to people to express written or oral viewpoints, grievances, or other messages to the board of directors. We allow 30 minutes for this communication. And let me see. We should be okay. It looks like we've got, if everyone keeps to their 3 minutes, which I know Scott will help us with, it looks like we've got about 15 minutes worth of citizen communication. So the first person that I'd like to call in is Barbara Smith on the issue of Rock Region Metro.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, Barbara.
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Board members, Mr. Jones, Attorney Carpenter, for the benefit of time, I attended the Rock Region Board meeting. May I give you all a copy of it?
You just hand them out. We'll hand them out for you.
I'm a rider of the board of the bus transit, and I have been attending the Rock Region Board meeting on monthly, and today I presented this with them with the changes that implemented back in November of 2016. Now, I don't fear change, I embrace change, because the only way our city is the growth and enhancement of our city is to make changes. But before these changes were even made, we showed them the flaws in it. So just to piggyback on a few things, number 8, Rodney Parham bus, has no time on it, doesn't make connection with other buses, does not pick up any passengers on Henson Loop Road and Napa Valley. Number 9, Barrow Road. Mrs. Jones, Barbara Jones, fought hard for that bus to start at Markham and Barrow Road and go on down. Now, several of us ride that bus to the Carti Cancer Center. They've changed the routing where number 9 now goes down to 12th and University, make the right turn, and then make the left turn on Cadence and Barrow Road. Well, now, when we were riding the bus previously, it let us out at Carti Drive, and we had to walk around that dangerous curve to get to the cancer center. Now they've added 3 blocks to that. So anytime a person has to go more than 3 or 4 blocks to a bus stop, it's out of order and need to be revised. And I don't see the need for number 9 to go out to Shackleford Crossing because number 3 and number 4 goes. Number 11, Dr. Martin Luther King, they've taken the bus, number 15, completely off the route, which has inconvenienced so many people out in Southwest. If you have to walk more than 3 or 4 blocks to a bus stop, then it needs to be revised. There are people that was riding the 15 bus when they got ready to go to work, they had 2 blocks to go. Now that 22 has incorporated some of 15 run, they have 6 to 8 blocks to walk. That is unfair. And number 22, goes into Euler northbound, but when it's headed out southbound, you have to get off on 28th and University, and there's a clip. That's a dangerous get-off point. It needs to go back in southbound, go into Euler, for they can connect with number 16. And number 17, Mapleville and downtown, it only runs certain periods of the day. It exits off University Avenue and heads southbound on University, which it can go into Euler to connect with the other bus. And at the end, I stated that we need a driver and a passenger on that board, eyes, visual. Because in closing, I would like to say that, and I had a question for him, you'll see the question, but I'm coming to the board because, 3 minutes gone that quick. We need to get on the Rock Region board, and I want to say this a little humor. When I purchased this $18 bus pass every month, car note, gasoline, maintenance, and a professional chauffeur. You all can't even fill your cars up with gasoline, $18 to $36 a month, and ride all month with it. So I want the board system, Rock Region is finance, to ask them to incorporate, revise these changes, because it's not fair to the passenger. Rock Region Metro Bus is about the people, not entities. And a quick comment about your gun law, and about
Barbara,
I know, but let me just say this, Mayor, and then I'm through.
You have to be respectful of the
I
process.
understand that Mr. Moore has a right to be protected, and Mrs. Hendrick, you're my awards person. I don't agree with you on that, because people are doing strange things, and he needs to be, not only him, all of you all of us need to be protected at any cost, okay? Thank you for your time.
You brought this to the attention of Rock Region Metro, I take it?
I attend the meeting day.
Well, we'll ask staff to follow up and address these issues and see what the responses are from we have people on there that are appointed to the Rock Region Metro Board, and we'll try and get answers to these questions.
Thank you.
It sounds like you've done a lot of work researching what some of the challenges are.
My eyes see.
Yes, Director Wright.
I just want to piggyback on what she was saying, Mayor, about some of the changes. I have heard some of the changes are impacting people negatively, and my experiences with them as a board member on this board have not always been positive. And I've had to engage Mr. Moore because of how they have treated me. So I can imagine how they would treat a regular citizen if they were disrespectful to me. And I've shared with Mr. Moore on several occasions that I don't care for how they interact. So I would be interested, especially on this car tie, because I don't know what Barbara Jones did, but I know what I did to get that, because car tie is a big deal. It's a big deal, and a lot of people work there. So I need to know how we can make the bus route getting to that site effective. So I will be following up with you as well, Mr. Jones.
Well, Mr. Moore and Ms. Lenahan are both on that board, so I expect we can get an answer.
I did share with them that whenever they come back for a reauthorization or wanting some more money, I was going to recall all of the incidents that I had.
Director Hendricks, did you have a question?
I turned my light on.
All right, the next card we have is from Camille Richaud concerning mental health and school disruption.
It's Rishu.
Richaud.
Yes. Hi, my name's Camille Rishu. I will be really quick. I'm the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration Prevention Fellow for the state of Arkansas. Very happy to be serving. I just wanted to make 2 quick points on the importance of stability, not just for education, and we do the APNA survey, which is the needs assessment survey for substance abuse and mental health, and specifically an indicator of poor mental health and substance abuse shows that lateral transition to new schools during the middle of the school year is considered a risk, and it increases negative outcomes. So I just really thank you for voting yes on the resolution. I'm not going to touch on that too much, but I really want to see this done so we can know what the impact on our school closures is going to be. And the second point I wanted to make, as I work in substance abuse and mental health prevention, we are facing some serious cuts with Medicaid with the fear of the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. And I would just like to welcome the whole entire board on Thursday for an Arkansas Supports the ACA event, Thursday at the old Supreme Court room at the Capitol. We'll be having Arkansans who will be speaking about how health coverage has affected them and about what the future of healthcare holds. So just thank you so much. It is at 6 o'clock on Thursday, sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Camille.
Yep.
Rashut? Kathy Wells on I-30.
Hello again, Mayor Stola, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm again coming before you as president of the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods. I'm following up on the letter of March the 2nd in which our members relayed to you our concerns that critical questions have not yet been answered about the current state proposal and about the fact that we need to get an environmental impact statement done to get those answers. One of the ones that's particularly concerning us, in fact, follows right upon your support for schools impacting neighborhoods in the resolution you approved earlier this evening. There is a distinct health risk for all in the corridors of freeways. In fact, there is such a risk, no less than the Environmental Protection Agency has a 20-page document, which I have thoughtfully given you a relay to on the letter, detailing how a school administrator can seal the school and specially filter the ventilation system to keep the kids from getting too poisoned during their school day in a school that sits alongside a freeway. We have several of those, as you'll recall. We're particularly concerned also about the unanswered questions that MetroPlan staff, your professional planners, raised last June. That letter goes on for 10 pages about inconsistent references, basically what we laymen call apples to oranges instead of getting apples, 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 laid out in columns of do we go this way or that way? And those answers haven't been brought in till yet. There's also the concern about the induced demand. New pavement attracts more riders. That's clearly established. That has been totally ignored. And nobody wants you leaders to go down in history as supporting a $700 million project that failed. Please get us answers. Demand an environmental impact statement to get those answers before final decisions are voted, and they're coming at us fast. Thank you for your concern.
Director Campuris, you recognize.
Kathy, you called me last night and asked me about that study, and I called today, and it's in progress, but it hadn't been finished yet.
No, sir. An assessment is not an EIS. They're trying to pretend the one is the other, but that's another apple and another orange. Don't you be misled.
Well, just for the board's edification, the MetroPlan is in constant contact with the Highway Department on the variety of issues that are entailed in this project. The issue of an environmental impact statement is a decision that's made by the Federal Highway Administration based on information that is presented to them. It is not something that this board can vote a resolution or appropriate money to do an environmental impact statement. That is done by the Federal Highway Administration. They make the decision. Certainly the issues of the environment, which Kathy mentions in terms of issues of health, issues of impact on neighborhoods, is very much a concern of the mayor. It's a concern of this board. It's a concern of MetroPlan. And so I can just tell you that it may be that the Federal Highway Administration will ask for an environmental impact statement. We just don't know yet. It's premature to know the answer to that. Okay, the next card is from Dr. Anika Whitfield, dealing with the school district millage tax.
Thank you, Mayor Stola. I do have some stickers that I'd like to give to everyone at the end of my presentation. I want to thank you, Mayor Stola, for speaking a lot about local control. We had a discussion earlier about taxes and what's going on in the Senate and the House in the state of Arkansas. And one of the Senate bills that I think you guys should be aware of as far as taxes, Dean, is Senate Bill 442. And that Senate bill actually will exempt schools from having to pay taxes if it gets passed. And so that's going to hit us statewide, but obviously our city's going to get hit quite a bit on that. So you should be very aware of it. And it's for schools that have charter schools. So it's only for charter schools. So you should be very acutely aware of that. But there's a millage tax that's coming forward May the 9th. And I know that there have been many city board of directors who are supportive of it, but I want you to understand how it is detrimental to the Little Rock School District. The Little Rock School District is currently not controlled by citizens of this city. It's controlled by the state, and the state has made it very clear that they do not respect the city directors of the city of Little Rock. And you can go to Arkansas Democrat Gazette last Sunday. Johnny Key said that regardless to what decisions you made about the Little Rock School District, that he was going to move forward with whatever his plans are. So someone who is so disrespectful of city governance and someone who seems to not care about what the city leaders and the people want for their neighborhoods in their school district, I think we need to speak very strongly to them and let them know that we expect and demand local control. That's why we have city governance. That's why we have city meetings, and that's why we reach out to the citizens of the city of Little Rock. And so I think it would be great if the city board of directors would make sure that you make a strong statement by saying that you're against this millage, not against millages as a whole, because I vote for millages as they are helpful. But this one will take control out of the hand of the citizens of Little Rock. That will stifle us and take away our local control, and we do not need that for right now. They can always pass a millage later on in the year. There's no urgency or emergency. Senate Bill 308 has been passed as well, and that Senate bill will allow any charter schools that want a vacant building in any city in our state to lease that building for market value or less, which means they can lease that building for $1 a year, and that the school districts would have to pay for the facilities. So as you can see, this millage would allow our Little Rock School District to build up facilities for other schools that are competitive with our district, to build up those schools for those private schools to come in, those charter schools to come in. So I'd like to hear your vocal support against the millage, and I hope that you will understand. If you have any questions, you could reach out to me and ask me. And I do want to thank you for the resolution passing earlier.
Just a word on the Senate Bill 308. Both Mr. Poore and myself spoke against that bill, and unfortunately it is ultimately passed, I guess, through both of the houses now. So it has to do with the priority that can be given to charter schools. And the concern, I think, that, and just so we lay out the analysis from a city there are many perspectives. From a city perspective, if a charter school elects to want to think they need that a surplus building, surplus school building, they have up to 2 years to make a decision. So whether they're getting financing or whatever they might be doing, that building stays vacant. And as I've made known before, a shuttered school is very detrimental to neighborhoods. And so the ability to put schools back into some use is very important. And we recognize that as this issue has come before us, whether it was Baker Curse or whether it was the facilities board, the issue of school closures was something that I think everybody knew was going to be coming about sooner or later. I'm very concerned that we make sure that we try to find uses for these schools, notwithstanding the issue of whether they're open or closed or used for the purposes that they were originally built for. So Director Richardson, you have a question about that?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you for your work on this issue, and I agree wholeheartedly. There's data that supports a direct correlation between vacant buildings and increasing crime within close proximity to those vacant buildings. And just for you, Dr. Whitfield, does 308 give first right of refusal to these charter schools? Do they have first right of refusal?
Yes, basically.
I want to get that on point. Okay. But I really appreciate you, and I hope that the people understand, and I hope this it bears out in our impact study. I think up to date right now, everything has been estimation and guesstimate, so I think it's important that we look at that and understand that there's data that shows a certain increase in numbers of vacant structures, including school buildings. You can correlate that to a certain increase, a definite increase in criminal activity within close proximity to that neighborhood.
Okay, well, the final card we have is from Suzanne Farr.
First, I want to thank you all for taking on this idea of a community impact study and supporting it and passing this resolution. I think this is, is this better? Okay, I just said first, I want to thank you all for taking on this idea of a community impact study and passing this resolution. And you know, that you clearly recognize the harmful effect of that. But what I want to ask, and I don't know if this is in your realm of influence or not, but I just want to put it out there, is when this impact study is done, I hope that we can do research and analysis of schools that were closed, communities where schools were closed 5 to 10 years ago, as well as this impact of what it will be now. And I think this speaks, Mr. Richardson, to what you're talking about, so that those can be compared. And if we can do that, take the ones that have been closed in the past, and then what might happen to those that are going to be closed in the present, this will give us both empirical evidence, and if we interview people from those neighborhoods where the schools have been closed, we will hear another kind of information, so we can get empirical evidence, and we can get anecdotal, where people can say, this is what happens. We have no children in our streets anymore. We have crime. We have whatever it is. We don't know what the impact is until we have that study. So the request is for a retrospective and also for a current. And look at it over, a 5 to 10 year period where you can be, I think you need to look at least 5 years to begin to see what that impact has been. So if you have any influence in what this impact study would look like. And I think we can't do the study without thinking about these neighborhoods were already fragile, where the schools are closed, and that is because of the impact of economics and race in this city. And that has to be figured into the study in a very, very careful way so that we get a true study and we can make decisions based on that. I understand that the decision supposedly is already made. I never give up on that. Save Our Schools does not give up on that. We will not end this until we get local democratically elected representation for our schools and for our people.
Those are some great points, Mayor, and I'd like to, not any questions for you, but just given the hour and the time, we hadn't had any break, I'll move to adjourn. Oh, well, Director Hendricks has a light on. I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
I've got a couple people who wish to say something. Director Hancock.
Yes, Mr. Jones, if you will look at item number 6 that was passed, this does not say anything about the city of Little Rock doing this study. This says that we will ask the superintendent if he would do the study, and Mr. Key if he would do the study, and I'm sure that they're going to tell us no. So we've passed this with nothing in it that gives us any clout to make them do it, and are we going to do it if they don't do it? Because according to the lady that just spoke, I think she assumes that the city of Little Rock is going to do this, and this does not say that the city of Little Rock is going to do this study. Okay, thank you.
Director Hendricks, you're recognized, please.
I heard Director Adcock talking, but what was she talking about? I mean, I couldn't hear her. Yes, we have a tendency not to talk in these mics, but I talk in my mic. But I wanted to respond to the last speaker,
All right, well, you may go.
That I recall what she's talking about, because we closed Reisel, we closed Ish, we closed Mitchell over on Roosevelt Road, and I agree with you. When they start emptying these schools, and mostly it's in the black community, and a lot of people, I don't know why you don't like to talk about color or race. I will talk about race till the day I die. And that's the problem, race. And people need to acknowledge this. I mean, are you all scared to say something's black or white? I've lived this long and I've made it, so try it. I think it works. That's all I got to say.
Director Richardson, do I hear a motion to adjourn from you? Oh, he's not here anymore. He vanished on me. There's a motion, a second. I hear a motion, a second. All in favor of adjournment indicate by saying aye. Opposed say nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.